Good morning. Welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson is on strategy number 18, 19, and 20. It is the last lesson on the discussion of the 20 strategies of fighting fraud and corruption. In the past 2 weeks or so, I've been discussing the 20 strategies of fighting fraud and corruption and other financial malpractices in organizations and the government. So today, I'm going to discuss strategy 18, 19, and 20. And then next will be the 9 steps of forensic investigation. Keep tuned. I will start with strategy number 18. Fraud, corruption, internal investigations policy. This is strategy number 18. And it's going to outline the rules and the procedures for internal investigations. An investigation, whether internal or external, is a legal process that must be carried out systematically, and therefore, this policy must outline the procedures for initiating an investigation through report writing, detailing rules and regulations to be followed, and also the personnel to be involved in the investigation. In the absence of this policy, an organization carrying out an investigation might find itself exposed to a myriad of legal suits ranging from invasion or privacy to unlawful detention and dismissal. Purpose of the internal investigations policy. The purpose of this policy is to A. Ensure that rules, procedures, and other policies like whistleblowing and anti-fraud and corruption policies are followed in carrying out internal investigation. B. Ensure the internal investigations are in compliance with other procedures, rules, policies of the organization. C. Ensure that the investigation is done according to generally accepted investigation standards, taking into account global investigative practices. D. Protect the rights and reaffirm the duties of personnel involved in investigative activities, including subjects of investigation, and in accordance with rules and principles of fairness. E. Facilitate, equip, and empower the senior person who is responsible for investigation to carry out effectively and independently the investigation function, organization, or business company to him or by the board of an organization. I will take this. E. Facilitate, equip, and empower the senior person who is responsible for investigation to carry out effectively and independently the investigation function of an organization or business company to him and her by the board given to him or her by the board of an organization. F. provide guidelines on how to start and finish an internal investigation. G. Ensure that the senior personnel in charge of investigation understands the channels of reporting open to him or her. Provisions of the policy. The following should be the main provisions of the investigations policy. Number 1, Investigation Procedure Manual. Clause number 1 should be about the internal investigations manual. To implement the internal investigations policy, the organization must ensure the objectivity, impartiality, and the quality of anti-fraud or corruption department investigative activities and guide its investigative personnel in understanding the investigation function. The Director of Anti-Fraud or Corruption Department will establish written procedures, practices, and guidance, including the Investigation Procedures Manual. Main contents of the Investigation Procedures Manual. A. Definitions of the legal terms or phrases used in the manual to enable the users and the readers to understand and apply its provisions with clarity. B. The particulars, qualifications, and experience of the personnel to be involved in internal investigations. C. Reporting lines. D. How, where, and when to start the investigation. E. Scope of the investigation. F. Report writing. Number 2, the scope of the policy. This policy will cover investigation of cases involving the following: A. Allegations of fraud. B. Allegations of corruption. C. Allegations of conflict of interest. D. Allegations of bribery. E. Allegations of all sorts of financial impropriety. F. Nepotism, tribalism, and racism. G. Undue discrimination against a staff or a group of employees. And H. Many more related cases that the organization may deem fit to include. Responsibilities of the Director in charge of Anti-Fraud and Corruption Department. The following are the responsibilities of the Director or Manager in charge of investigation. A. The overall management of the Anti-Fraud or Corruption Department's employees. B. Custodian and implementer of the investigations policy. C. Organizing and carrying out investigations as per the policy. D. Liaison with other department heads where the wrongdoing might have occurred so that he gets their cooperation in information sharing. E. Report writing. F. Reporting to the designated official of the organization. Application of the policy. This investigation policy should apply to all staff members of the organization, irrespective of their positions, that is, all employees from the floor to the directors. The policy should not be deemed to apply to other areas or incidences not covered by its scope as outlined above. Nature of investigation. An internal investigation legal as well as administrative in nature. An internal investigation is legal as well as administrative in nature. It seeks facts and evidence that a wrongdoing actually took place or it did not take place, and therefore the allegation is false or not supported. The investigation function should be viewed and understood as part of the internal justice system of an organization. Number 3, what triggers an investigation? Allegations are reported through the channels outlined in the whistleblowing policy. Once the designated official receives the allegation, he or she should forward the same to the investigators in the Anti-Fraud and Corruption Department. In the absence of this department, the allegation should be forwarded to the Internal Audit Department's Forensic Investigation section. Upon receipt of the allegation report, the investigator will start on the investigation following the 9 steps of forensic investigation, as discussed later on. The next lessons will be on the 9 steps of forensic investigation. And those investigative steps must be followed so that the investigation is seen to be not only systematic but procedural. The director or manager of Anti-Fraud or Corruption Department shall acknowledge receipt in writing of those reports made. Where allegations of misconduct concern the staff of Anti-Fraud or Corruption Department, the director or manager and the Anti-Fraud or Corruption Department will immediately inform the audit committee chair, who will make the appropriate recommendations. Allegations of misconduct concerning the director or manager and fraud or corruption department shall be reported to the director general or manager or CEO, who will immediately inform the chair of the audit committee, who may refer the matter to an alternative external investigative authority. I'm saying this because no one is immune from fraud and corruption. No one, underscore this, no one is immune. Even the director of the Fraud and Corruption Department can be caught perpetrating fraud, and therefore he cannot investigate himself, or he cannot be investigated by his junior staff. And therefore the proposal that the audit committee should refer the matter to an external investigative authority. Guiding principles. Guiding investigative principles are as follows. A. Investigation must start with undercover preliminary investigation to assess whether or not the allegation is likely to be true. Once there are indications that the allegation could be true, the full investigation is instituted. The preliminary investigation does not point if the preliminary investigation does not point to likelihood of allegation leading to tangible evidence in support of the allegation, then the investigation stops there. B. Full investigation follows the preliminary investigation. C. All personnel involved must be trained forensic investigators, preferably CFIPs. certified forensic investigation professionals. The full investigation must be done according to the law of the land and other organization rules and guidelines. There must be 100% examination of documents in the crime scene. That should also involve 100% analysis of related computer data. All evidence collected must be kept confidential and under lock and key until the report is required for filing in a court of law. The chain of custody for all physical and tangible evidence must be kept right from the start of the investigation. Respect both the suspects and the witnesses and always treat them with dignity. Do not threaten anybody, since your objective is to look for truth, and it is the truth that can either set one free or mark him or her for arrest and prosecution, appear harmless all through the investigation. J. If there are situations requiring consent of the employee or subject of the information, like in collecting documents from his office drawers, please get that consent. And if that consent is refused, please read the organization's policies to see whether there is a general consent given by employees by signing policies like the anti-fraud and corruption policy. There is no such if there is no such consent, it means that the employees have expectation of privacy in their offices and drawers, and therefore any forceful entry and seizure of documents or such shall constitute invasion of privacy lawsuits. When we were discussing the anti-fraud and corruption policy, we said that the main function of the anti-fraud and corruption policy is to give the organization general and unlimited consent by all employees for searching their offices, breaking into their offices, in case there is requirement for gathering evidence when instances of fraud and corruption are discovered. If that policy is there and it was signed by all staff, among other things, authorizing the organization to have unlimited access to all the items assigned to the employees, including offices, drawers, and computers, then there will be no problem in searching, seizing, and searching such offices, drawers, and even computers. If, in the absence of such consent, then there is the expectation of privacy, and therefore the breaking into the office, into the drawers, or the computers, the laptops, to analyze them forensically will be considered violation against the staff's expectation of privacy, and therefore the organization can be sued. Number 4, detention. Sorry. Professional investigators, whether internal or external, are not allowed to detain anyone without a court order. This policy should therefore outlaw the detention of any staff for whatever reason. If the investigators need to interview someone, it must be by consent and the interview location must not look like a confinement. The interviewee must feel free and be seen to be free to leave at any time. That is, the interview room must be open, and the interviewee must have access to the exit. Interviewing investigator is also required to remind the interviewee that the interview is voluntary. If confinement is required prior to interview, the arresting officer, who must be a policeman, must apply for confinement order from the courts of law. They usually ask for at least 2 weeks to enable them to complete and finalize investigation. This is usually done if the suspect is likely to run away if set free before the conclusion of the investigation. Number 5, involvement of policemen. Internal or external investigations need not be undertaken by police officers or designated officers of government, but when it comes to arresting a suspect, the police must be involved. This policy must also require the investigators to seek protection by the police if the fraud or corruption suspects are considered dangerous persons that might plan to harm the investigators during and after their investigation. All white-collar crime suspects are potentially dangerous, and therefore, as a general rule, all investigators must seek police protection all the time when they are carrying out investigation. They do not use force or violence in perpetrating. That is, the white-collar criminals do not use force or violence in perpetrating crime, but when it comes to investigation, they usually resort to violence to defeat justice. It therefore goes without emphasis that all investigators must always carry out what I call self-risk assessment to enable them to determine and evaluate the risks for their involvement in investigation each and every case, and therefore seek mitigation. One way of mitigating against the risks is by involving armed police officers. 6. Evidence preservation. The policy should state clearly what steps must be taken to preserve the crime scene and evidence and the evidence right from the reporting dead. Evidence preservation is discussed in details later. Evidence preservation shall definitely involve the keeping of the chain of custody, document, or register. Evidence preservation is important since all investigation reports are expected to be presented in court, whether you like it or not. Detailed discussion on the chain of custody is outside the scope of this lesson, and therefore it will be discussed later when we are discussing the 9 steps of forensic investigation. Number 7, search powers. The policy must give the internal or external investigators express powers to break into lockers, drawers, and offices of suspects and collect evidence. Without these powers, any such actions will be illegal and against privacy of the respective staff. This clause of the policy should also be supported by the anti-fraud and corruption policy discussed earlier on. Number 8, staff cooperation. This policy must require all employees before investigation to report suspicions of wrongdoing during investigation by supplying information, and after investigation by implementing any recommendations as a result of the investigation. It should state that any employee that willingly withholds information shall be subjected to disciplinary process, and if found guilty, shall be summarily dismissed. It, it therefore goes without much emphasis that under this policy, all staff must be required to cooperate in sharing information during investigation. Number 9, report writing. The investigators must conclude the investigation by writing a report to the audit committee or the board of directors. The report must follow the generally accepted standards of good writing so that the report will clearly explain the investigative activities, processes, and all procedures undertaken to correct evidence, analysis of data, and then outline the findings and the conclusions drawn therefrom. The report writing must follow the following standards. These are the minimum standards of report writing. Clarity. The forensic report should be very clear as to the message it is intended to convey. B. Systematic. It has to be systematic in its narration from title through conclusions and recommendations. C. Timeliness. It has to be done shortly after the conclusion of the investigation so that the investigators forgets nothing. D. Relevance of content. The content must be relevant to the case under investigation. E. Legibility. The report should be written in a language that is easy to read. F. Understandability. The report should be able to put forward information, arguments, and conclusions in a very understandable manner. G. Brevity. The report should be brief, avoiding excess and unnecessary words. H. Preciseness. The information presented must be straight to the point. I. Accuracy. The narration of the evidence correction must be accurate, and also the information put in the report. Every point of evidence must be accurately supported. J. Free from ambiguity. K. No information on the report should be capable of double or triple interpretation. 10. Staff commitment. All employees must read and commit themselves to compliance to the rules outlined in the investigation policy as and when they join the organization or at the effective date of the policy or upon amendment of the policy. 11. Review or amendments. The policy should be reviewed with a view to amending it at least every 2 years from the date of this implementation or within such intervals that the board may from time to time determine or set. Conclusion. In conclusion, as much as the investigation must start with undercover preliminary investigation to assess whether or not the allegation is likely to be true. preliminary investigation does not point to likelihood of allegation leading to tangible evidence in support of the allegation, then the investigation stops. This will then mean that the allegations were false or were not accurate. That is the end of my discussion on strategy number 18. I will now move to strategy number 19, deliberate and structured rewards for integrity. What do I mean by deliberate here? Deliberate means planned, designed rewards for integrity. For decades, anti-corruption strategies have been based on an understanding that corrupt people were rational beings, making rational decisions when they decide to engage in corruption. As a result, the rationale was to make corruption as inconvenient as possible. However, contrary to this assumption, sociopsychology and behavior economics demonstrate that human decision-making is not always rational. Mental shortcuts and intuition play an important role in shaping behavior surrounding corruption. This realization has opened up a new terrain to think of anti-corruption based on how people act towards and engage in corruption. That requires first an understanding of the psychology of corruption, and second, a holistic approach to influence both the mind and the environment in which the individual makes decisions. Awards as a form of incentive are amongst some of the tools that can be considered when designing strategies meant to help curb corruption through behavioral changes. Main points. Number one, awards work as incentives to influence human behavior. Number two, the promotion of intrinsic motivation to counter corruption should produce an emotional reward obtained after doing something right for others. Number three, motivation can come from reinforcing the idea that what is done to the individual level matters and promotes integrity. Number four, by providing genuine incentives, organizations can motivate partners or employees to demonstrate their anti-corruption and integrity efforts proactively. Are there examples of public authorities, companies, or organizations using integrity awards for employees? Caveat. This answer provides examples of integrity and anti-corruption awards granted in a variety of sectors, including the public, private, and non-profit. It was, however, not possible to find information regarding their impact. Awards as general as behavioral incentives. Awards in form of orders, decorations, prizes, and titles are present in all forms of government and can also be found in private organizations, not-for-profit, and profit-oriented firms. In France, for example, the Legion d'Honneur plays an important role, and 4,000 such awards are conferred annually. In the United States, the president and Congress bestow medals, and the military has handed out Purple Hearts, bronze, and silver at an increasing rate over the years. Awards are widely used in the corporate sector too. Firms often honor their employees as Employee of the Year or hand out thank you or best employee awards. The media also supports this by creating their own awards and by regularly choosing best managers, CEOs of the year, and the person of the year. Organizations such as the World Economic Forum appoint people to the position of global leader of tomorrow or young global leaders. These are all types of awards. Despite the fact that awards and distinctions are a commonplace in modern society, there is scant literature on their potential to stimulate behavioral change. While some economists have studied the effect of awards in terms of sending a signal, fostering competition, and providing an incentive in a principal-agent relationship in a firm, such approaches have not yet been able to capture the comprehensive impact of awards in driving widespread behavioral change. Behavioral economics, which combines economic methods with insights from psychology, has the potential to consider more profound ways in which the recognition conferred by an award might affect an individual's behavior. Of particular relevance is the impact awards may have on an individual's self-esteem, identity, status, and reputation, and therefore that the desire to win awards could exert influence over how people behave. How can awards help against corruption? Awards work as incentives via a number of channels that have been shown to influence human behavior. According to Frey and Neckerman, 2008, awards can serve as a motivation because they, number one, make the recipients feel good about themselves irrespective of the monetary or status consequences. Number two, generate social prestige and recognition amongst peers. Number three, promote a competitive environment which many people enjoy irrespective of outcome. C, come with monetary compensation or other material or immaterial benefits. Number five, they help establish role models, distribute information about successful and desirable behavior, and create loyalty. This reason, they also, for this reason, they also have the potential to serve as anti-fraud and corruption tools. Limitations of sanctions. Anti-corruption policies and strategies are often based on sanctions and the idea that they will help deter potential violators. The effectiveness of sanctions as deterrents, however, depends significantly on the risks being being fought. Hence, if the risks are low and no financial or social costs are anticipated, engaging in corruption may be seen as profitable and as the rational decision. In such environments, sanctions may exist on paper but are insufficient to deter wrongdoers. In environments where the rule of law is weak and impunity is high, relying on sanctions alone can therefore be ineffective for a number of reasons. First, To detect corruption, cooperation between several parties is often necessary. Actors that face sanctions only approach may be inclined to review such cooperation. In such situations, actors may fear disproportionate punishment and prefer to cover up problems rather than proactively cooperating to find a solution. Second, sanctions as punishment of corrupt act may be insufficient to motivate actors to implement preventive measures or to take other proactive anti-corruption approaches. Finally, sanctions can help shape behavior in a manner that encourages adherence to certain standards, but they seldom provide motivation to go beyond this minimum, often legal requirement. Accordingly, incentive-driven approaches that encourage people to act in line with the principles of integrity could theoretically be a useful complement to deterrence regimes. Systems that foster motivation to act against corruption could seek to capitalize on the emotional reward individuals often experience when acting with integrity and altruism. According to Suniga, such motivation can be leveraged by appealing to individuals' sense of moral responsibility and reinforcing the notion that action at the individual level matters. By moving beyond focus on minimum standards and preventive strategies to reward people seen to have actively promoted integrity, awards may offer means of nurturing others to do the same, resulting in positive, if incremental, changes to social norms. Positive and incremental changes to social norms. Nonetheless, it must be noted that the evidence basis for this notion is extremely thin. Combining carrot and stick approaches. Incentives may address the limitations of sanctions-only approach in terms of the lack of motivation to show positive behavior when the violation of a formal rule comes to light. They can also help motivate actors to adhere to certain rules when sanctions on their own fail to do so, and to stimulate these actors to go beyond the minimum standards established in the law or in the procedures. When law enforcement is deficient or corrupt, sanctions are also unlikely to provide a strong enough deterrent to engage in acts of corruption. Law enforcing authorities or other control or auditing institutions may find it difficult to increase financial and social costs significantly to outweigh the gains of corruption. In such situations, stakeholders may choose a complementary approach by introducing financial and social benefits for adhering to anti-corruption standards. Wagner, Sekonen, and Bierman, 2013, argued that a company representative may opt to forego short-term gains from a corrupt act for more long-term rewards that can be obtained for not violating standards, work standards. It needs to be recognized that such incentives may typically not outweigh the gains of violating anti-corruption standards. However, when combining material financial benefits with considerable social benefits, such incentives show that countering corruption makes business sense and ultimately leaves companies better off in the long term than peers which are not engaging in this fight. The existence of such incentives also strengthens the individual's perception of doing the right thing. In a context where law enforcement is relatively strong and laws, treaties, or other regulations are generally widely accepted, adherence to standards may be successfully achieved through sanctions and mitigation incentives only. But standards need to be kept up to date to reduce the risk of corruption in a changing business sector. Stakeholders may offer genuine incentives to achieve this. If rewards are given to move beyond the current status quo, top performing companies may be motivated to do so. Over time, these companies raise the bar of what is expected from business. For example, while most companies' internal control systems still rely on a manual sample-based approach for detecting irregularities, advanced companies use information technology to automate the detection across full datasets, reducing the risk that irregularities remain undetected due to sample-based controls. Stakeholders may decide that they prefer to do business with companies applying such process rather than with those still relying on a more random, higher risk approach. Offering genuine incentives can also help stakeholders overcome the risk of non-detection. For example, while large companies' codes of conduct for business partners typically include the possibility of business partner monitoring, the high number of partners makes this challenging in practice. Therefore, a risk-based approach is usually adopted, which calls for due diligence, reviews for the largest and the most critical suppliers, but relies on the cooperative behavior of the majority of other suppliers. By providing genuine incentives, companies can motivate business partners or employees to demonstrate their efforts proactively. The burden of proof is thus shared. Despite the strong reasons for the use of genuine incentives alongside sanctions, stakeholders need to be aware of several factors when applying them. Companies may reap the rewards of genuine incentives without really adhering to standards or by pretending to adhere to standards. Sorry. Genuine incentives can create expectations or dependencies. They may also signal that a stakeholder or a business company's business to do the right thing, resulting in a lower intrinsic motivation. Incentives may trigger desired behavior, but the long-term effect needs to be considered as they guard the risk that the behavior only changes as long as these incentives are provided. For example, the Doing in the Dark campaign promoted by Princeton University, where students across universities were encouraged to reduce their energy consumption for 1 month, shows that as soon as the competition terminates, energy levels dropped back to where they were before the competition. Moreover, extrinsic incentives might undermine intrinsic motivation. For instance, emphasizing the financial benefits for enrolling in an energy saving program can decrease environmental concern and reduce the willingness to care about it. That is Van der Reden, 2015. While these considerations need to be addressed, the theory suggests that when properly designed, establishing positive incentives to complement the existing legal regulatory framework may motivate actors to counter corruption and further develop anti-corruption standards. It is worth noting, however, that the lack of studies into the wider impact of individual awards on the ground has yet to prove this theoretical argument. Annual Rewards Day. The organization should deliberately plan and schedule for Rewards Day annually so that all employees have time to celebrate the champions of integrity. These days should be celebration holidays whereby the employing organization invites the following to join staff in the celebration. Number one, staff, spouses, relatives, and even children. It is good for spouses, relatives, and children to come and witness the rewards given to the champions of integrity so that they can also motivate their dad or mother who is employed by the organization to work much harder to either be rewarded or maintain the reward, especially if it is a rotating cup or a trophy. Number two, suppliers of goods and services who deal with the employing organization. In a well-designed system for identifying staff of integrity, the suppliers must be involved, and therefore it is necessary for them to come and witness the rewards and participate in the celebration. As corrupt staff affect all, including suppliers, so too honest staff affect all. Number three, customers or clients of the employing organization. In a well-designed system of identifying staff of integrity, the customers or clients must be involved, and therefore it is necessary for them to come and witness the rewards and participate in the celebration. As corruption staff affect all, including customers or clients, so do honest staff also affect all. Some may argue that having such a day is costly for the organization if it is a commercial organization. This argument is baseless, since the benefit to an organization can get from integrity, work environment more outweighs the fraud and corruption that might cost it millions of dollars a year. Types of rewards for integrity. I recommend the following rewards. Number one, praise the staff who performed well publicly before all staff and even publish their names in internal newsletter. This appears more and non-monetary, but it works wonders in staff motivation. Number two, issuance of certificates of merit. Let these certificates be in a suitable design or a format for framing and hanging in one's office, so that whoever visits can see that the staff is or was integrity champion of a particular year. Number three, issuance of trophies to be retained or rotating ones. Trophies are also good motivators. Let them be accompanied with very nice shelves where they can be displayed in the offices or workstation of the winner. Number four, upgrades and promotions involving special salary adjustments. Staff are well aware that their integrity saves the organization from losing cash and other resources, and therefore expect that to have an impact in their net take home. Small salary adjustment or opponents can work miracles in motivating not only themselves but also others. Indicators of integrity. According to research and experience, the following are the indicators of integrity. Punctuality in both reporting to workplace and completing assignments. Number 2. Commitment to the business of the employing organization. Number 3. Avoidance of idle time during working hours. Number 4. Avoidance of gossip during working hours. Number 5. Avoidance of loitering around the workplace instead of working on assignments. 6. Reporting work malpractices immediately they are detected. Number 7. Avoidance of staff harassment and unnecessary arguments. Number 8. Being principled. Number 9. Respect for organization policies and procedures. Number 10. Respect for regulatory authorities. Number 11. Respect for senior and junior staff as well. Number 12. Minimum requests for time offs. Examples of anti-corruption and integrity awards. This section provides a few examples of anti-corruption and integrity awards in the public, private, academic, and non-profit sector. Unfortunately, evaluations pertaining to the impact of the awards in successfully promoting ethical behavior or anti-corruption compliance could not be found, which made it impossible to determine the outcomes of each of these examples. Non-profit sector. Parliamentary Integrity Awards, Australia. The Accountability Roundtable is an Australian non-partisan group of citizens with diverse backgrounds: academics, lawyers, politicians, journalists, authors, just to name a few, who are dedicated to improving standards of accountability, probity, transparency, and democratic practice in all governments and parliaments in Australia. The Accountability Roundtable created two parliamentary integrity awards for federal parliaments, which were first awarded in 2013. Coalition for Integrity's Integrity Award, USA. The Integrity Award is designed to recognize contributions by an individual or an organization to advance methods to counter corruption and to promote transparency and accountability within business, government, and civil society in the United States or abroad. The previous recipients of the Integrity Award are the United States Senator John McCain, former U.S. Attorney General and Anthony Preet Bharara, former President Jimmy Carter, Sir James D. Wolferson, and the former President of the World Bank Group, former U.S. Senator Richard G. Lugar, former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton, and former Chairman of the Federal Reserve Paul Volcker. To be eligible, the individual organization, in addition to having a reputation for integrity, must have demonstrated and sustained a track record of actions and ideas relating to the promotion of ethics and integrity, anti-corruption programs, and or corporate social responsibility in the U.S. and or internationally. Transparency International's Ameria Award. The Transparency International Ameria Award recognizes and celebrates professional excellence and the impact made by anti-corruption workers from within the Transparency International movement. The award has two categories: impact positive change brought about the action. Number two, professional excellence, advancing the mission of the Transparency International as a whole through demonstrating professional excellence and expertise in an area of anti-corruption work. Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Anti-Corruption Excellence Award. The Anti-Corruption Excellence Award granted by the Qatar Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Center with support from UNODC intends to advocate the importance of tackling corruption and encourage the implementation of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption by gathering and broadcasting creative and outstanding achievements of anti-corruption projects and honoring exceptional efforts in the field. By highlighting exemplary models and promoting excellence and creativity in anti-corruption, the award seeks to serve as an incentive for greater motivation and as a tool to identify, recognize, honor, and reward those who show vision, leadership, creativity, enthusiasm in, and a commitment and dedication to tackling corruption. Public sector. Public Service Excellence Award, Kenya. The Public Service Commission in Kenya helps motivate public officials to improve service delivery in the country by addressing the low morale in the public sector. The Public Service Excellence Award was introduced in 2015 to recognize public service employees who have demonstrated excellence in achieving results while reflecting the government's values. Nominations for this award are open to all employees from ministries and state departments. The award has several categories, including one focused on values and ethics. The nominees to this award should be acknowledged by the colleagues as persons of integrity whose character is beyond reproach. They must be selfless, honest, and impartial in service delivery. Integrity Idol. Integrity Idol is an international campaign promoted by Accountability Lab and run by citizens to award honest public officials. The objectives of the campaign are to generate debate about the idea of integrity and to inspire public officials to be more honest, responsible, and effective public servants. The campaign started in Naples in 2014 and now also takes place in Liberia, Pakistan, Mali, Nigeria, and South Africa. Citizens from each country nominate their candidates, and an independent panel of experts narrow the list to 5 candidates. After telling the stories of each of those candidates on television, citizens can vote for their favorite via SMS and the website. The winner is publicly crowned in a ceremony. Part of the success of this experience is its annual continuity. giving time for the experience to sink into the citizens and public officials' minds, generating expectations and the potential desire among public officials to be a future candidate. Another success citizen engagement. When Integrity Idol started in 2014, there were 303 nominees and more than 10,000 Nepalese voted. In 2016, there were 850 nominations and around 100,000 voted. At least two aspects might explain this increase in citizen engagement. The participation does not involve any significant change in the lives of the citizens, and it is safe and anonymous. Moreover, the use of television amplifies this impact and might trigger in the citizens a response from witnessing the participation of other citizens. American Society for Public Administration's Public Integrity Award. This award pays tribute to an individual or organization that has made outstanding contribution to responsible conduct in public service. The award is presented to an individual or organization that represents any domain of public service, local, state, national, international government, or non-profit, and presents evidence of benefiting the general public. Academic sector. UC San Diego Integrity Awards, USA. The UC San Diego recognizes integrity as a core principle and a prerequisite for excellence with their Integrity Award. Each year, the university recognizes the members of their community who have made substantial contributions to academic research and professional integrity over the previous 12-month period. In addition to the award, the university also introduced the Excel with Integrity Art Contest. This contest is open to all undergraduates, graduate students, and the postdoc at the university who are asked to submit a drawing, a video, a song, or a written piece that expresses how one can excel with integrity, or I write why integrity is important for success and excellence. The first and second place obtain a small cash prize of US 250 and US 150 respectively. International Center for Academic Integrity Awards. The International Center for Academic Integrity was founded to counter cheating, plagiarism, and academic dishonesty in higher education. Its mission has since expanded to include the cultivation of cultures of integrity in academic communities throughout the world. ICAI Awards have 5 different integrity awards during its annual membership meeting every year. The awards include the World Vogel Exemplar of Integrity Award, which honors individuals who demonstrate courage and perseverance in championing the ideals of academic integrity in the face of opposition and or adversity. Nominees need to be teachers, administrators, staff, or scholars who have made outstanding contributions in promoting or defending the ideals and the values of academic integrity. In addition to Ford Fokker Awards, ICAI also grants the Campus of Integrity Award, which recognizes campus-wide efforts to promote and or maintain the values of academic integrity. Nominations can be made for individuals or teams who have made extraordinary contributions to the field by upholding scholarly standards and or improving the quality of education on an institutional or larger scale. Private sector. Walmart's Integrity in Action Award. As part of their strategy to promote ethics and integrity, Walmart recognizes staff members when they make ethical decisions, so their example will inspire others. Their global recognition program, the Integrity in Action Award, celebrates staff members who model integrity or encourage others to do so. Associates nominate and vote for candidates, and Walmart recognizes the award winners at the annual shareholders meeting. Some of the winners for this award have been rewarded for declining bribes, reporting illegal practices, and preventing fraud. American Subcontractors Association, USA. To promote ethical and equitable business practices, the American Subcontractors Association recognizes subcontractors that demonstrate the highest standards of internal and external integrity in the construction industry. The Excellence in Ethics Awards are granted annually based on corporate ethics, policy, and procedure, and construction, industry practices, and general business practices. Each firm applying for this award is judged based on their corporate ethics and policy procedures, that is, the commitment to business ethics demonstrated on a corporate and individual level, and verified by customers and suppliers, general business practices, etc. The applicant does not seek its own best interest at the expense of the industry and the construction business practices, that is, that the applicant provides materials and services in a manner consistent with the established and accepted standards of the construction industry. UNWTO Ethics Award. The World Tourism Organization is the United Nations agency responsible for the promotion of responsible, sustainable, and universal accessible tourism. As the leading international organization in the field of tourism, UNWTO promotes tourism as a driver of economic growth, inclusive development, and environment sustainability, and offers leadership and support to the sector in advancing knowledge and tourism policies worldwide. UNWTO encourages the implementation of general code of ethics for tourism to maximize tourism economic contribution while minimizing its possible negative impacts, and is committed to promoting tourism as an instrument in achieving sustainable development goals geared towards reducing poverty and fostering sustainable development worldwide. The UNWTO Ethics Award was established in 2016 and is open to all companies and associations that are official signatories of the private sector commitment to the UNWTO Global Code of Ethics for Tourism. To be eligible for the Ethics Award, signatories of the private sector commitment must have reported on its implementation. Conclusion. The anti-corruption award may, in some cases, have profound impact, as the recognition may contribute to socio-political and economic developments in the countries to which they relate, or to organizations to which they relate. Therefore, in selecting anti-corruption award recipients, the Anti-Corruption Award Committee follows a clear evaluation process, honoring the right of participation, equal opportunity while ensuring diversity. In considering nominations, the Anti-Corruption Award Committee also looks for geographical and occupational barriers. That is the end of my discussion on strategy number 19. Deliberate and structured rewards for integrity. I now move to strategy number 20, proactive staff rotation and on-the-job training. As corruption is pervasive, combating it is a tedious job. Initiatives are a manifold, pointing either at influencing behavior directly, such as the public relations campaigns or codes of conduct, or at reforming organizational structures and procedures to create a less fertile ground for corruption. An instrument from the latter category is the rotation of staff. Recently, the German federal government has released a directive to implement rotation of personnel in sensitive areas on a regular basis. Since corruption is built on organization or business company and reciprocity between public officials and the users of their services, we can expect that long-term relationships between potential bribers and the public officials are an especially advantageous environment for bribery to emerge. In more detail, a preventive effect of rotation mechanisms on corruption can be conjectured for the following reasons. Number one, public officials may be less tempted to be influenced by gifts since they cannot expect to be rewarded for cooperation by receiving bribes again at later encounters. Number two, bribes may be less organization or business or a business company bribes may be less in organization or a business company if the public officials know that they are going to be rotated anytime. Since the users of public services, number three, since the users of public services, that is potential bribers, do not know the public officials he deals with from previous cases, they will find their behavior more difficult to predict, and which increases uncertainty attached to corruption or corrupt offers. Although these arguments seem plausible at the first glance, their validity cannot be taken for granted. Neither can be the necessity of long-term cooperation as a basis for bribery be taken as a fact. Nor can we definitely say that the removal of long-term interaction is sufficient to reduce the level of bribery in an administration. To date, there is no clear empirical evidence proving the bribery reducing impact of staff rotation. Several ad hoc arguments can be raised that cast doubt on effectiveness of rotation instruments. Corruption grows also in one-shot environments. As an example, decisions about the venues of Olympic Games have been manipulated through bribery, although there is no interaction between the same cities and the members beyond the singular venue decision. Experiments show that organization or a business company and the reciprocation are observed even in non-repeated games under completely anonymous conditions. Evidence from experiments on fixed versus changing partner situations is mixed. Thus, we might conjecture that the effect of rotation mechanisms in corruption scenarios is possibly weak, if not absent. Staff rotation is costly. Public officials have to settle into a new job in every round of rotation. Resources required for training employees increase. Since officials have to cover a broader scope of capabilities, they must be better educated than if they have fixed responsibilities, which includes attendance towards higher salaries and thus higher personnel costs. Because of high costs, staff rotation should be introduced only if its effect of reducing bribery is substantial, which is an empirical question. Empirical evidence from the field, however, is difficult to obtain because of mainly two circumstances. First, the level of corruption before and after the introduction of rotation mechanism is, for obvious reasons, extremely difficult to measure. Second, initiatives to fight bribery are mostly taken after corruption scandals have been discovered. Even if there was a reliable measure of corruption, it would be unclear which part of an eventual effect had to be attributed to greater caution and increased sensitivity of individuals. Therefore, it is suggested that further experiment be done so that empirical evidence can be found supporting staff rotation. Sorry. To test the effectiveness of the staff rotation regime, more research should be taken. As I've already said, there is no direct benefit that has been that has accrued to government organizations from staff rotation. As far as the frequency of bribery instances are concerned. I will now move to discuss proactive staff rotation and on-the-job training, and my emphasis now will shift to business non-profit organizations or government-related agencies that have some commercial activities. I am recommending that organizations must have in place proactive staff rotation or on-the-job staff training policy. I am discussing how this will help deter, prevent, and detect fraud or corruption in organizations, business organizations, as well as non-profits. Staff sharing responsibilities. This policy should explain in details how staff are to share the responsibilities of another that is on leave. Some 2 or 3 staff may share responsibilities, or one of them may take over all the duties and responsibilities in acting capacity. It is very possible that during this time, irregularities may be discovered, and if investigated, could lead into discovery of ongoing fraud or corruption. Compulsory annual leave. Why do you think a person should work for 2 to 3 consecutive years without taking annual leave? Many staff who appear very hardworking to the extent of not taking leave are undiscovered fraudsters. They work hard for long hours, over weekends, and skips leave in order to cover up their evil tracks. Sending them on leave and then assign the duties to someone else may to a large probability lead to fraud or corruption discovery. Just read through the case below. James worked as an accountant at a branch of a large organization for many years without taking leave. He was very bright and hardworking. Reports from that branch were both prompt and accurate. Nobody suspected anything until there was a change in the human resources management, and the new HRM manager decided to send all staff with accumulated leave days on compulsory leave. When James went on leave, his deputy was appointed acting branch accountant. The deputy discovered that the accountant was taking kickbacks from suppliers of goods and services. All supply orders were being overstated by 25%, and then James could get kickbacks after delivering checks to the suppliers. This was revealed to the acting accountant by one supplier who wanted this payment and promised to give 25% of the amount to him. Upon very slight questioning, he revealed that is the supplier revealed that was usual practice by James, and therefore the acting accountant was also entitled to that amount if we paid him promptly. Investigations by the acting accountant confirmed the supplier's tip-off as true. All orders to major and friendly suppliers were overstated by 25%. On the job training, allowing staff to share duties of their juniors and seniors while they are on leave is like training them to take over when a vacancy arises. I have seen cases where a staff is appointed to take over from his senior, and then he discovers that the senior has been sitting on fraud. This is closely related to the foregoing discussion on a compulsory leave above. The organization can also implement a deliberate plan of training key staff to be able to do the work of their seniors for succession purposes. Transfer to sections or branches or subsidiary companies, interdepartmental and sectional transfers. Training staff to become multi-skilled so that a finance manager can act for a human resources manager and vice versa. Chief Finance Officer can act for CEO, Sales and Marketing Director, for instance. A senior staff from the internal audit can relieve the Chief Security Officer, for instance. The training should also involve external training like financial skills training for non-finance managers or human resource skills training for all heads of sections or department. How can transfer assist in fraud and corruption deterrence and detection? I have learned from experience that staff who know for sure that they can be transferred anytime at short notice to a different workstation to avoid perpetrating malpractices for reason of being detected by the incoming staff or manager. Many of the following instances or cases are detected by staff transfers. Kickbacks taking. This can easily be detected by new staff who comes in. A good example is already narrated above, the example of James, the accountant. Number 2, overpayment and return schemes. This can easily be detected by a new staff. Number 3, fictitious suppliers. This is a business created by staff perpetrating the fraud. He or she keys the name into the computer as supplier with the fictitious physical and mailing address. The perpetrator creates keys and creates and keys in fictitious invoices, and when payment is made or transferred, it goes to his or her bank account and that of the proxy in his crime, in this crime. Number 4, expense account fraud. This is where staff or staff process personal expenses as business expenses. 5, client receipts diversion to personal accounts. This can easily be discovered by the new staff. Bid rigging schemes. This can be discovered. Number 7, commission fraud. This can be discovered. Illustrations. I want now to illustrate how the above types of fraud can be discovered or detected using staff rotation. Illustration number 1 is for kickbacks. The story goes as follows. John was working as assistant accountant at branch 13 of the AZ Limited. He was hardworking and straightforward, and so the organization decided to prepare him to take over as branch accountant when a chance arose. A time came when the branch accountant of branch 14 was going on an accumulated leave for 3 months, and John was asked to relocate there to act as branch accountant for 3 months. He obliged and moved there. In the second month of his acting as branch accountant, a supplier came furious and noisy. Why he had not been paid. When he entered the office of branch accountant and saw John, the acting branch accountant, he looked like shocked, and uh, he asked the acting accountant, is where is John? Where is the branch accountant? John told John told him yes, he had been acting there for 1 month. Supplier asked him, why are you not aggressive like the branch accountant you are acting for? John replied by asking the supplier what he meant by his question. The supplier started by telling John that the person he was acting for used to make good cash by paying him in good time. He could ensure that he delivers the check by himself to collect a kickback uh, every month. The supplier went on to say that the kickback was 20% for every payment delivered to the supplier. John, being the honest staff he was, he reported the fraud and the corruption discovery, and an investigation was instituted, the findings of which shocked the top management that the scheme had cost the organization millions. The branch accountant was overstating all orders to the supplier by 20% so that he could get the kickback to him after payment to the suppliers were made. It was found out that he was doing that with all suppliers of the branch. Illustration number 2. Transfer of customer receipts to staff account. Jane worked with the ABC Limited as senior auditor, and she was recruited to act as a senior accountant in charge of the accounts receivable ledger for 1 month while the office holder was on leave. Having trained to be inquisitive as auditor, she decided to review accounts of customers with the credit balances to try and understand why and how the accounts became credit, and in the process, she noted debit channel transfers, which she traced to the staff account of the senior accountant. The staff accountant of the senior accountant had dates for excess medical bills and a car loan that was meant to be paid via salary deductions, but he decided to clear the dates by defrauding the customers. So she discovered that another reason why the accounts were in credit was that the invoices were not being processed, and therefore the payments from customers could be left hanging in the accounts. For what reason? When the payments hang there, it appears that the customers have overpaid their accounts, and therefore making it easy for the senior accountant to transfer the same to his staff account to clear the staff loan and also the medical excess bills. Conclusion. In the combat against bribery, rotation of staff in public administration is suggested as a precautionary measure. To test the power of this policy instrument, research should always be conducted so that the effectiveness is proved. Otherwise, the implementation of the rotation will be an unnecessary cost to the government or the organization if the benefits are not confirmed. On average, bribes are reduced by almost one half, and perhaps more importantly, the average frequency of inefficient decisions caused by bribery decreases even stronger with the implementation of a strong staff rotation policy. The effect of staff rotation on reducing corruption is due to lower tendency of users of administrative services to pay bribery, as well as to lower propensity of public officials to be influenced by them in favor of the bribe. As bribers cannot reciprocate on favorable decisions by paying bribes in later cases, because the position holders will be rotated at short notice. Organizations can also benefit immensely by implementing the staff rotation policy. The staff rotation policy also improves skills of staff and prepares them to take over taking over from their seniors when they retire or when they have been promoted to much more senior positions. This is the end of my discussion on strategy number 20. This discussion is the last lesson on the anti-fraud and corruption strategies. I've discussed 20 of the strategies, strategy number 1 to 20. I've gone through them one by one. I also did the introduction. And therefore, in total, I've done over 20 lessons in the past 2 weeks or so, discussing, and the discussions are mainly centered on the strategies, anti-fraud and anti-corruption strategies. The 20 strategies constitute module number 1 of the Forensic Investigation Masterclass. And therefore, these are good reading. This recommended that all the Forensic Investigation Masterclass go through the videos, they replay all of them in order to master the content for module 1 before they take their test. This is meant to assist the Forensic Investigation Masterclass students to be able to complete their training within 3 months. Next, I will be discussing the 9 steps of forensic investigation, and this will start from Sunday, this weekend. Thank you for listening, and bye-bye.